And welcome back to the channel, guys. Today is cold air intake, Skunk 2 Racing. Let's get into it. So we're going to start by removing our battery and the original air intake components, replacing the sensor or removing the sensor. And don't forget to drain your radiator fluid. That's also going to be a step. Instructions call to relocate the ECU plus the fuse box, but that fuse box is pretty tucked back, so I don't know if that's going to even be needed, but I guess we're going to find out once we start taking this stuff out. The antifreeze reservoir, that's going to have to be repositioned as well, possibly. And then the battery tray that sits underneath this thing might have to be removed. We will be also going in through the side fender or the fender wall to remove the old box. That has to be done as well. And yeah, so let's start tearing this thing apart. Remove this tray here. We'll take this out. Hopefully these things come out easy, but they are rusted pretty bad. Some of the built up as well from the battery acid, I'm assuming. Take a break from this part, and we're going to start taking apart the air box and the old intake. Okay, so now we're down to this. We have the 2 bolts, 12s on top, and then there's going to be another one right underneath the plate, at least on the back side that I could see, and then there's going to be another one towards the front, also underneath the plate, also 12. So we got to get those two to be able to lift this plate up. Alright, so this is what we got so far. Now we're just going to have to work on getting the plastic tubing from outside the fender wall out. We're going to get that out. Then it's going to require us to reposition the battery. The battery actually goes down below the way it's positioned, at least on the instructions. And then there will be a requirement to drill into the subframe here. So we're gonna have to put the plate here, and then we also have to look to see where the bracket, this gets moved up higher up. We got to reposition the ECU out of the way so it doesn't. If I can get it without repositioning it, I will, but typically when you start messing with how the instructions are supposed to go, that's how things go bad. So I might have to reposition this and disconnect everything. 10 mil bolts on each side. There's actually 3 of them. ECU. Careful, these clips on top. So there's 3 clips, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. So we can pull gently on these. And now we're going to detach the original ECU bracket. We're going to take that out. There's a new one that goes in its place. It's probably sits it higher up. And then the clip, since there's 2 clips on the back, and I don't think you're messing with those based off the instructions. There is, however, a clip here that kind of goes with the ECU bracket. So they removed the original bracket, you shift it up higher with the new bracket, and then there's a tiny little clip it includes, so that way on this side of the fuse box, it holds it to the new bracket, and then 2 original in the back stay where they are. All right, so we're going to install this bracket right over here, and I'll show you what that looks like. Like I said before, 2 brackets on top are the original that hold this side of the box, and then this one's going to go on the other side. So it really doesn't reposition the box, but it just replaces the clip, because the original harness had it attached to it. So to get the old harness out, you have to use one of their clips that come with the kit. So we have to use the old bracket off of the ECU housing. I had to drill this bad boy because it snapped, so I put a little stud in here from a header, and I made it work. So we got a nut on the bottom, a nut on top, put some anti-seize on it in case later I have to remove it because of replacing this. It attaches to the mount, so the transmission mount, which is kind of annoying, but anyway, so reuse the bolt on top, the bracket goes here, and then this guy kind of goes in on top like this. So once I loosen that nut, I'll put everything together, and it's going to literally sit like this. So it's up higher near the brake fluid reservoir. So yeah, made it work. So I just wanted to make sure that the bolt fit, and it does. So I'll be loosening this up, put the bracket right on top of this bad boy, tighten everything up, and hopefully put the ECU back on. Some struggles. Let me get the light. So in there's the cable that comes out from the firewall right back there behind the brake fluid. So I had to reposition it. It was clipped on right here. So I had to pull it out, unhook it from the back. Man, that was a bitch. So pop that out and then flip the wire to this side, because when the bracket, the ECU sits up higher a little bit more, there's not enough slack in the cables. And not to mention that also is sitting right up against the cable for the brake fluid. So this thing is pretty tight. Not gonna lie, it's pretty tight. So I guess if I bring it out this way, let me take a look to see if that's messing with the wire. No, it's not. Yeah, you gotta be very, very careful with this installation. So they make it look easy with Skunk's video, but I promise you there's a little bit of a struggle there. So anyway, the last cable on the ECU has to be pulled from here to the other side and then rerouted in. But like I said, be careful. There's a cable at the bottom of the brake fluid reservoir. You don't want to pinch that. So technically I could probably push this down a little bit if there's too much pressure on that. There isn't really pressure on it, just sits right up top of it. So yeah, be very careful. So it should be good. So I'm gonna go ahead and fasten these up, tighten these up, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so we got the fender off the left side, driver's side, and we were able to pull the box out. And all we had to do is pull the fender back, not removing the whole fender, but just pulling the fender back, removing the screw from the bumper. There's one screw in here, Phillips, and then you could gently pull back the bumper, as you could see here, without breaking anything. And then there's 2 screws inside on that box. There's one on the right side, which is here, and then there's one on the left side on the opposite side. So you can get it from the top. When you go in through the top here, you'll be able to go through this side, pull this back, and you'll be able to get the wrench inside there and remove that other screw. Okay, so I'm out of breath. So now I removed the ground nut, which is down here. There's ground wires. See all those wires right here? There's a nut in the middle. You're gonna remove that nut, and then you're going to put the clip behind the wires. And I'll show you here what that looks like in a second. Clip is installed right here with the ground wire over top of it. I do not know who thought about this or who the genius was that decided let's put a ground nut and wires over top of this. So I don't even know if this is gonna fit, but let's try it. I did push the wires back real snug. I might have to move this out of the way just for the time being so I can get a nice flush fit to it. Or actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pull that clip back. I'm gonna push it back. Oh man, who designed this? I know what I'm gonna do. Right here. I'm gonna pull this just like that. And that way when I get it, oh, right there. See, I pushed it out, or I pulled it out a little bit. So let's see. This thing is still in the way. I'm trying to hold the phone at the same time. It's not bueno. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, well, it's sideways, so let me adjust it, see if I can get it snug. All right, so we got intake is in, mounted to the side of the battery bracket, and now we got our sensor on. Now we just got to figure out what we got to do with these two, and all these are tightened up. And now we also have to install the filter at the bottom and then button her up, and she should be good. So I'm gonna figure out what we can do with these two. I just gotta look at the manual, see what we got.
Well, final thoughts, let's talk about it. So definitely some issues with the installation. It wasn't the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I will say that it was definitely a challenge. Definitely working down here in this area with corrosion and rusting and bolts and all the things. So definitely when you do this installation, make sure you have proper hardware, or at least replacement bolts, because one of the bolts from the trans mount actually snapped off inside. So I had to drill that out, as you saw before. So once that is all done and the tray is in place, I think before I mentioned that the battery sits lower, I thought it was going to sit lower. I've seen some other installations where the battery is much lower, but that isn't the case. But the bracket is kind of pushed in more. Drilling wise, drill a hole into the subframe to get at least that one bolt in, which is it's fairly easy to do. For the hoses, we have the top hose that comes off the top of the engine straight in, which was a no-brainer. I did use the hose that was supplied. They send you a pretty long hose, so I was able to cut this one to length and then detach that one. This guy eventually is going to go, and I'll explain what I'm going to do with that. So depending on the season, if it's summertime, wintertime, I might be flipping back and forth between this, because this has the hot coolant coming through to go into the intake. So there is a bypass feature that there's a hose down below here that comes off the bypass. And what you do is you're going to use the factory tubing that comes from the throttle body. There's that hose that comes out. That hose is going to connect straight into, or you're going to take, so you're going to take this hose, one of the hoses from the throttle body, and you're gonna feed it into this port, and then it goes back down into the bypass line that comes off of the thermostat housing. So there's a pipe there with a connection. So essentially what you're gonna do on the bottom with the throttle body is you're gonna cap those off. I heard AutoZone has little coupling caps that you can throw over top of it to pretty much you're deleting it, and you're running the coolant that's coming off here, and you're gonna run it down. It's hard to see because I don't have a light to get down there, but there's a hose here that has a coupling that also connects. So pretty much the water circulates around the throttle body to keep the throttle body warm. We obviously, when we do a cold air intake, we want the throttle body not to be warm. So in the summertime you won't have any issues, but in the wintertime you got to be careful. If the temperatures drop, that might be an issue. So you got to think about that long and hard. Unless you put your car in the garage, I don't see it being a problem in the wintertime. But to start this thing, I don't have experience with that. I don't know what's going to end up happening if anything ends up freezing over. I don't know if that's exactly the reasoning behind it, but I just know I've seen other people deleting these two lines that come off the bottom of the throttle body, and then just taking the stock hose, connecting it, and then running it back so that way the coolant circulates through there, eventually eliminating this, because this first hose was the original that went into the original air intake. That's the one that comes off of the top one here. So the top one connects into here and then goes into the intake. So I just routed it, one hose there, one hose into the side. I guess they call that a valve or a breather or a bypass. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that. But that's pretty much how I connected it, and it's running fine. So eventually this will be gone, and I'll have one tube straight in, like I said, one tube going down to the bottom, and then this will be gone, and then I'll cap the bottom of the throttle body. So one day I might do a new throttle body, but other than that, I mean, it's in. I did get my Honda in, so I got my decal in. It don't go fast if you don't got decals. I'm just kidding. Anyway, it is now outside of factory. It is now tuned outside of factory. So I have taken it out for a test drive, and it's absolutely amazing. Sounds awesome. And be careful when working in this area. I had a problem before, so I guess I'll put that out there now. So the Skunk 2 comes with a radiator hose that's kind of has the U-shape bend that comes underneath the intake and then over to the side. However, what happens is, and you can hear it, you can see it, this guy here needs to move freely. So the hose was butted up right up against it, and then when I first got in the car and I was doing, shifting gears, I couldn't shift, and I was wondering, did I mess something up? Did I drop some coolant into the transmission or whatever? So then finally I discovered that the hose, if not bent correctly or if not positioned correctly, it was putting pressure on the bracket where the gear shifter arm here, that's your gear, and yeah, it was buttoned up against it and I couldn't even get the gears in. So just be careful with that. Make sure you position the hose a little bit further to the left instead of more to the right. Got the wires all hooked up and everything's all buttoned up. This hose this wire kind of hangs here. There's really no clip for it, but and I just disconnected I got to tighten that back up. So yeah, so just be careful with that. Make sure there's nothing in the way and cables are not in the way. So yep, does require some finesse. So make sure you got all that taken care of. I'm gonna tighten this up right now.